All right, now it's time to get to some picks. The Cowboys are favored by 2.5 on the road. As always, Cynthia, we're starting with you. What do you got?
I really hate upsetting Cowboys Nation because they let you know.
And they're active on Twitter. Yes.
They're very active. But I have a 1-point home victory for the Saints. 24-23.
Now, we're aligned there because I am also picking the Saints. I think Who Dat Nation, that's a tough place to play. And to be honest, I got a couple of questions about the Cowboys offense and how the Dolphins played them pretty tough early on there. So I'm going with the Saints as well. What do you got, Greg?
This is a show-me-something game for the Cowboys, who've played maybe the 3 worst teams in the league before. And I think they're just so much more talented than New Orleans that they get it done. If Jason Garrett can't beat Sean Payton now, when Drew Brees isn't on the field in New Orleans, like, he's not gonna do it in New Orleans. I know he did it a year ago, but this was his mentor. When they were with the Giants, this is how he learned how to coach underneath Sean Payton, who's very close with Jerry Jones. Like, there's a lot going on here.
I love all the storylines, but you actually kind of made 2 of my points for me. First, some tricks up their sleeves in at home, right? In New Orleans. I think that means like Taysom Hill. We finally see a little bit of that going on. And the other thing you talked about in this situation, like, they want that, like Sean Payton's using everything from last season to their advantage, and this game is one of them. I mean, obviously the ref stuff, heard about that somewhere just a few times, but in addition to that, this Cowboys game specifically is one they have it circled. You know what? We need to get it right now.
I love it. Anytime I pick with Cynthia, I feel really good about my projection. It is time now to move on to a couple of AFC East teams that are undefeated. That's right, the 3-0 New England Patriots taking on the 3-0 Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Greg, I'm starting with you. What are we watching for?
To see if this Bills offense of improvement is for real. And talk about a fan base that gets after you on Twitter. When I mentioned the Patriots defense has scored 12 points this year and they've only given up 6, the Bills fans said, that doesn't matter. Wait till they face Josh Allen. Let's look at who Josh Allen has played against this year. The Jets, the Giants, the Bengals. I want to see him against a Patriots defense that's swarming, that's really doing something interesting with their rotations, where they play about 19 guys right now, 15 plus snaps. Players are coming on and off the field. They have a ton of energy. I think it's a lot to deal with.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, obviously, look, we have to bring it up because it's a historic stat. Being able to score more points on defense than you've allowed, like, it doesn't happen for a reason. And both of these defenses are actually like the strength of each other's team. So when you kind of do the math in your head, even in the eye test, it's like Tom Brady, Josh Allen, what are you going to do here? But I do want to point out about the Bills defense, look, you have some really strong Tre'Davious, I mean, you have great corners. You have great front. So it's not going to be this Tom Brady, I'm going to throw all over the yard, 400 yards, like, let's just light you up. It's going to be a, like, let's be strategic, let's just outpace you, let's do kind of the things that we do best.
And you're right. This would probably be the biggest test for the Patriots as well. We talked about the Bills opponents, but the Patriots opponents are also 0-9 so far this season. And this will be the biggest test for this Patriots offense, this Bills defense. So how do you think they're going to fare in this week?
I think it'll be close in terms of it's a game where Tom Brady has to problem solve and Josh McDaniels has to problem solve because their offensive line hasn't been great, especially in the running game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points. But who's going to problem solve better, Josh Allen or Tom Brady? You were a receiver. I mean, tell me what it's like to be...
A New England legend at that.
Right. Tell me what it's like to be running over the middle and you're about 6 yards away from your quarterback and he throws it in there about 100 miles an hour. Because people saying Josh Allen is improved, but I still see that every week.
Yeah, no, to me, that's a big telltale sign of a quarterback is how you put touch on the football in certain situations and also how often you're getting your receiver blown up.
If you do that and Stephon Gilmore standing next to you, what do you think happens? Because I think Stephon Gilmore ends up catching the deflection.
Absolutely.
And it's a problem for you.
That's why that defense is so good. So it's time to get to some picks. Cynthia, we'll start with you. What do you got for this game?
Okay, so Bills Mafia, avert your eyes. I have 26-17. I have the Patriots coming to town and unfortunately leaving as unfortunately for Bills fans, leaving as the only undefeated AFC East team.
All right, I'm with you there. I'm not picking against Tom Brady and the Patriots. Not this early, but I do think it'll be a pretty good game. What about you?
Yeah,
Bill?
I'm with you, and I think it's comfortable. Josh Allen right now has 5 total touchdowns, and he has 7 combined fumbles and interceptions. So I think the Bills' defense plays great. They're one of the best, but those turnovers from the Bills is the difference.
We are expecting things to get real defensive between the Bears and the Vikings. Cynthia, we're going to start with you. What are you watching for in this game?
Well, you talked about it exactly. I'm really curious to see what this Bears defense looks like against Kirk Cousins. We saw different Kirk Cousins, right? We saw he started to look a lot better. We've seen Dalvin Cook just dominate so far. Yeah. What do the Bears have in store? The Bears, who have more interceptions than any other team over the past 2 seasons. They're just ridiculous. They've actually allowed fewer passing touchdowns than interceptions that they've caused since the beginning of last season. So that's ridiculous.
I look at 2 quarterbacks that are struggling, and their coaches are almost hiding them, but who gets more help? I mean, Kirk Cousins has Dalvin Cook. He's got Madison, who comes in off the bench. He's got Adam Thielen. He's got Stephon Diggs. And he's got a great defense, too. Everson Griffin is really having a resurgent season. So they have the edge rushers that the Bears have, and they're going to be coming after Trubisky.
That's my biggest question. I want to know what Dalvin Cook is going to do against the Bears defense.
Well, if Akeem Hicks, who's been banged up, if he's not there, then it's going to be a much better fantasy day for Dalvin Cook.
Okay.
So that's kind of, for me, something I'm keeping an eye on because Akeem Hicks is low-key really, really good at bringing pressure. You see it in the past, but also against the run. So an interesting, let's hope he's there if you're a Bears fan.
Right.
They're playing straight out of the 1980s right now, the Vikings. They are under center, I think, 80% of the time. That's far more than any team in the league. They're just handing the ball off. It's no shotgun, no spread. It's old school, and I think it can work with the group that they have.
Yeah. Well, the Bears are favored by 3. Let's get into some picks. We'll start with you, Cynthia. What do you got for this one?
Okay, Bears favored by 3. I just want to make sure that,
make sure it's right. This is why we come to you.
Referring to the card here. Ultimately, for me in this one, I've got the Bears 22-17.
I like it.
So 4.
You've been on the Bears a lot
5.
this year. You've stood tough with them.
I think defense and their O-line really gives them a chance in every single matchup, especially when you have a guy like Kirk Cousins who does throw interceptions and turn the ball over in the red zone.
I love it. I love it. I don't love it because I don't agree. I'm going with Vikings, which means I'm probably going to be wrong. But the reason being, I'm not sold on the Bears offense yet. They had a really big week last week. It has some injuries to it. What is it going to look like? That's not the normal Trubisky and Chicago Bears offense we've seen. So I'm going Vikings.
No, I'm going with the Vikings because I think the Bears are counting on their coaches to scheme up easy throws for Trubisky. And if those easy throws aren't there, there are no throws there. And so I trust the players, the talent on Minnesota.
As we all correctly predicted last week, my Browns took an L on Sunday night to the LA Rams. But that's okay because we're now back in AFC North matchup. For me, I'm going to kick this one off. What I'm looking for is I want to see how Baker handles both kinds of pressure. A lot of talk has been going on about how he's been doing a lot of smack talking in the offseason, but the stats don't really support some of the, the yapping, and as well as pressure in the pocket. People were sending blitzes at him wide. Wade Phillips had a great game plan against him to try to keep him in the pocket, and he has not responded. So that's what I'm looking for. What are you guys' thoughts?
How do you think, this team better than obviously both of us, but almost anyone even watching here. How do you think the mentality, especially those receivers, they have really strong receiving core. What are they doing to kind of help Baker? Because he's super young. It's not like Odell Beckham Jr. has so much experience in these high pressure situations, right? What are they doing?
I don't think it's the receivers. I think it's Freddie Kitchens. And there's 2 facets to that. One, the best thing you can do for a young quarterback, we've talked about this, is give him a good run game. I don't think they've called enough runs and established that run. They're having him sit back in the pocket and try to dice people up, and he's still young. Not to mention, he has to get the ball out of his hands quickly, and the plays have to support that. Because when he sits in the pocket, he's rushed out, and they're just not options down the field. So that's one thing, again, we've talked about the offensive identity. They have to figure that out.
I mean, it's also calling runs at the same time. At the right time. I don't think you want any more 4th and 9 draws.
Yeah, exactly.
From Freddie Kitchens this
Exactly.
week.
Not an analytics move. Just so we're clear. Just kidding.
I want to see how the Ravens defense shows up because they're worse this year. They're not the same group they were before. They're missing Terrell Suggs and Zadarius Smith. I think they really missed C.J. Mosley, their middle linebacker. They lost their slot corner, Tavon Young, in the preseason, and teams have been hammering them over the middle. So how much worse are they? Can Earl Thomas maybe make a bigger impact? Because right now this Browns offense kind of is a group that you should be able to handle if it's a normal Ravens defense. But I don't think it is a normal Ravens defense.
I think it could be. I know that sounds weird.
Yeah, I don't know what this Ravens defense is.
Right, because I think a good Ravens defense is awesome secondary, and then they find guys who can just create pressure. And Matthew Judon really has kind of been coming on strong. So I think it's taking some time, but maybe they will have that identity. but I think the offense is so strong. And who would have thought like we'd be saying this, like, oh, the Baltimore Ravens vaunted defense is like the thing we're questioning, when we have a guy like Hollywood Brown who kind of emerged out of nowhere, and we weren't expecting him to be this just like, okay, maybe he's quietly an MVP candidate. I mean, obviously, usually it's a rookie, not MVP, a rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year candidate. So ultimately, it's an interesting situation when you have such a dynamic offense, and then we're like, oh, like who would have thought we were saying this about the Ravens?
It's kind of flipped on both sides, though. Your Browns' defenses look great. They have not been the problem.
Even with injuries, they've played
Tons of injuries.
So the Ravens are favored by 7 in this one. Cynthia, we're going to go to you first, as always, to give us your projection.
Okay, so I have Ravens 28, Browns 20. You know that I love these like weird round number things, but the takeaway here is that they win by 8 points.
Okay.
It's less about the exact number. It's more about the fact that they win by 8 points, more than a touchdown.
I'm going to pick with my heart again on this one. It'll be the last time I do that with the Browns. I'm going with the Browns.
Look at you.
It'll be the last time I do that.
If they let me down this time, it'll be it. But Baker typically rises to the occasion whenever the conversation nationally comes around.
He got a national kick in the tush this week.
So I think he's going to respond, so I'm going with my Browns on this one. What do you got,
plus
Greg?
they need to bounce back emotionally. I think when they found out that Andrew Hawkins wasn't even picking them last week, it's like that was a big downer. So this is a big lift up for the team. I'm between you two. I think the Browns keep it close, that it's a field goal game, but the Ravens do find a way to run the ball on them at the end and win.
The Texans are favored by 4.5 at home. Cynthia, we'll start it off with you with our picks for this one.
So the Panthers did look really good, but I think in this one, the Texans will look better. I have 27-21 in favor of the Texans.
All right, I like it. Look, I am not in the business of picking against certain quarterbacks in this league. Unfortunately, Kyle Allen is not in that category yet, and Deshaun Watson is, so I'm also going with the Texans myself. Greg, I'm kicking it over to you.
Kyle Allen was the truth, though. He
was balled.
I think he keeps this close, that it's a field goal type of game. But the two most revelatory things in all of Week 3 to me was Kyle Allen and the Texans' offensive line. They made 2 big changes, and they protected Deshaun Watson. And if you protect Deshaun Watson, I think the sky's the limit with this team.
Yep.
I mean, all right, fine. Then let's go back to the Motor City, my home state. Chiefs, Lions, Kansas City, favored by 6.5. All right, I'm gonna go first on this one. I hate to do this. I'm sorry, hometown, but
you keep picking against them. They haven't lost.
I love it because now you know how it feels.
Maybe it's a tactic. No, I have the Kansas City Chiefs 30, the Lions 23. It could be even more of a high-flying offense for Kansas City in Detroit, but the Euros are still going to taste good at Ford Field.
That's all that counts.
Yeah, I'm with you.
The Euros are really good.
Chiefs rack up an easy win here. I'm with you.
Easy win for the Chiefs. Okay, don't tell Marv, my guy, but I'm also going with the Chiefs myself.
Well, that's why we didn't pick close to him, so he wouldn't hear us picking against him.
Let's go to another game in a dome. Titans and Atlanta this week. Kind of like the Blah Bowl, 2 teams with not a lot of buzz, but there's one quarterback I trust way more in this game, and that's Matt Ryan. I think they get the win.
I was about to be like, Marcus Mariota?
No.
All right, I have the opposite. I have Titans 23, Falcons 21. It's not a pick against Matt Ryan. I think he's the better pick in terms of how quarterback performance will go. But the problem is, I think Derrick Henry and running against this Atlanta defense without Keanu Neal is going to be an easier value proposition now that Neal is lost to injury. So for me, it's the Derrick Henry show, and kind of everything else comes off of that, meaning this Titans defense and their great secondary. I think Julio Jones has an uncharacteristically quiet day. Yeah.
I mean, Marcus Mariota's fine when he's handing off, but when he's dropping back, he's holding on to the ball way too long for a road game. I think it's trouble.
I'm going with the Falcons as well. I'm always going to err on the side of the quarterback I trust most, and much like you, Greg, I trust Matt Ryan a lot more than I trust Marcus Mariota.
All right, I'm alone. I'm all by myself.
Here is the rest of our picks for Week 4. What's standing out here?
You guys hate the Jags. I don't.
I like Gardner. I'm just not sold. I'm not going to let Minshew Mania ruin my record any more
Broncos
than I
have
already
moved the ball
have.
pretty well this year. Haven't scored a lot. Wow, and Hawk, you've got the Redskins, just raining down on Danny Dimes.
I think they'll figure it out.